Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the October 5th, 2022 State Historical Records Advisory Board meeting. It looks like we don't have a quorum today, so we will proceed with our agenda just as discussions and we won't take any official votes. We'll postpone that till we do have a quorum. So welcome everyone. Everyone got the agenda. You did get the minutes, the draft minutes from the June 1st meeting. So just take a look at those if you have any corrections or edits. We'll take that up next time when we have a quorum to vote. So that will be good. Usually we start with really brief updates about what's going on in the department and a little bit in the archives. So Dr. Waters, I don't know if you have a couple things you want to share from the department.
Yeah, happy to do that, Sarah. So thank you everybody for being here. I continue to, really appreciate, and I know the department does, from the secretary on down, your service on this board. So thank you for making the time in your schedule to do this. I looked at the minutes and I know that that Sarah really covered a number of things that are going on in the department the last time around. So some of this may be repetitive, but you all know that that the General Assembly passed and Governor Cooper signed a 2-year budget. We know that. I want to just kind of highlight a couple of things that are there that I think are important to us. Also, on July 11th this year, he signed adjustments to the second year of the biennial budget, which began on July 1. And the important thing about staff, and I've been saying this in all meetings that I've been in, is that my time in this office, in this position now, is just a little over a year. And I've learned a lot. There's a lot for me to still learn. Sarah has been great as a mentor and tutor in getting me adjusted to the department. So I deeply appreciate that. But one of the things that I've noticed is that, our staff, and especially on the archives and history side, are, I would say, grossly underpaid. And so I am out here trying to beat, beat the drum as much as I possibly can to try to bring public awareness of that, because I think that the work that we're doing here, and it was just a report that came out, and I think I shared it with Sarah yesterday. I think I shared it with you, Sarah, the report that came out that is showing that as far as cultural resource management is concerned, that there's an expectation for exponential growth in this area. It's becoming much more important, I think, as we move forward. So ensuring that the members of our team are truly paid for the work that they're doing, I think is fundamentally important. So we need to kind of advocate for that. But the newly enacted budget did give permanent and state employees a 3.5% raise this year, in addition to 2.5% raise last year. A couple of things that were also included in that were $1 million for renovations and upgrades at Halifax State Historic Site. And that $1 million, and correct me, Sarah, if I'm wrong here, but I think that's going mostly towards exhibit updates, which, I'm learning really quickly how much it costs to do exhibit updates. And that's not nearly enough money to do the entire site. So we're hoping that we'll be able to get more resources in, especially because that site, as you know, is fundamentally important to the state of North Carolina and the American Revolutionary War period. So it's important that we do that work. I don't know if there's anything, Sarah, that you want to add there.
Yeah, that money was for exhibit updates. They do already have some money for renovation of their visitor center and then the Davy House. So those are big capital projects. So I think the good news from the last 2 years is that sites has gotten a lot of money to help with some of their lagging infrastructure problems. And that's one of them. So
I wanted to address that. Also, there's a $500,000 in the budget, included $500,000 for Fort Dobbs State Historic Site for construction planning there. The idea is to build a new visitor center there, which they definitely need. Also, the budget included $200,000 in this round for America 250 planning. We will need more money as we continue to move and plan for that. I really thank Sarah, because Sarah is really leading that work here for the department. But those are a couple of things that I just wanted to bring up that we did get. We need more resources, as I said, to support the work that goes on in archives and history. One of the things we need is, upgrades to this building and how records are actually stored and kept here in this building. So your advocacy for that is much appreciated. So if you're taking that to, members of the state legislature from your area of the state, I know we all deeply appreciate that. But I wanted to address those couple of things, but glad to be here with you again today. Good to see you all. And thank you for the time that you're giving to do this work. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Waters. So a couple things just from the archives. I just pulled out some things that I thought would be of interest to maybe things that you all do, places we're out on the road or other areas of interest. We've actually had a huge increase in our desire for tours now that people are out and about more with the pandemic. So it's just tours nonstop. I think we had 174 people come through to do tours just in October. And that included everything from a group of Duke students orienting themselves to K-12 audiences to all the legal interns for the state agencies. So we even have more coming up in October. So that's been good. Takes a lot of time, but it's good to kind of give them a behind the scenes, gives people a reason to be interested in archives, even if they're not coming here to just do a specific research project. In addition to that, staff have been out at events, whether that's state historic sites having Somerset Days Gone By Festival. We had a table there. The department's been running some what they call DNCR days around the state, where that's just information about the department. So, we've been out and about with those things. We're going to have a table and a booth at the upcoming American Indian Festival at the Museum of History. So that's some good stuff to look forward to. Adrian, one of her other duties is to run the Cultural Resources Emergency Support Team. That's a network of volunteers from across the state that would be called into service if they needed to, in like an event of a hurricane or other natural disaster. So for the first time in many years, she was able to, through a small grant, support a training session for all of us together. We went to Charlotte Hawkins Brown State Historic Site and had a great time. She had a bunch of expendable things that she got wet, and we had to pretend pack out, and it was a lot of fun. And it was good to get all the team members together. We meet every year virtually, but it was nice to be able to physically do hands-on and talk things through with conservators. What would I do with this? What would I do with that? How would I triage this material? So I think that was very beneficial that we just did that in August. And then just a couple of things about digitization, some of things I've collaborating with some of you on, but we always have digitization projects in the hopper. Some of those coming up for this year include continuing on the Aycock Brown collection from the Outer Banks History Center. That's a massive set of photographs documenting the life at the Outer Banks. He was a famous photographer from that area. We have a lot of America 250th records underway to support the commemoration upcoming. We're trying to support state historic sites like Charlotte Hawkins Brown has some original collections that we're helping with them to get digitized. Working with Drew and trying to do a statewide collection of cohabitation records from the Register of Deeds offices. Most of those are here, but some of them are still out in the counties. And so we're going to try to borrow those and get one centralized collection of that. Although, Drew, I was a little distressed to see that some of those that are listed as being in the county are not located. So we'll have to keep working on that. But that'll be a good project. And then the other one that this has been on my radar for a long time, and it coincides with our ability now to do more crowdsourced transcription types online. We're going to digitize and put they're called the grandfather clause books, but they're from the early 1900s when the state constitution was amended. And one of the ways to prevent people from voting was to have people had to register that their grandfather could vote in 1865 or their male ancestor, this is only for men. And several counties, those books survive, and it's a good way to locate somebody, and it has a little bit of genealogy information in it. So we're going to try to digitize all those and make that a crowdsourced transcription project coming up this year. And we thought that'd be a good thing for America 250th to kind of talk about voting and voting rights and the continuum of that and how that evolved and expanded over time. So looking forward to that. Our new season of our podcast is out. They're putting out an episode every other Wednesday. So if you haven't checked that out, it's called Connecting the Docs, DOCS. Season 3 has 3 parts about the journey of an archival record. Then we move into like specific stories. Halloween focused one. There's 3 that are focusing on topics related to coastal history. They're kind of framing it around where the crawdads sang that book. So there's one on the Maroon colonies, school truancy, and oyster culture and foodways in the East. And then there's going to be a couple based in the mountains about mountain speak and mountain music. And then a couple highlighting some of our interns' work, including our oral history intern this summer, and that features an interview with David Siselski. So got a lot of good stuff. So it's a fun podcast. Brooke, who's on the call today, is involved in that. So I encourage you all to listen to it if you like a good podcast. Like I like to listen to them when I'm walking or cleaning the house or something. They're good to capture. And then the only other thing I wanted to highlight was the department. Starting last year, I may have mentioned this already, but we have been using an outside firm called Lord Cultural Resources to review our visitor experience. And we started with 6 locations or 5 locations in this. So we have another round 2 going to 6 more locations. And while the state archives is not exactly the same as, say, your visitor experience at a state historic site, I did volunteer the archives to be part of that so that we could have that team come in and take a look at our visitor services to see, just are we welcoming? How accessible are we to folks that are not used to an archives or that may not have ever done research before, and that kind of thing. So we're looking forward to they're going to be on site to visit next month, and that'll be good. So looking forward to hearing more from them about what we can do to improve. There's been a lot of conversation about that in the archives world, about how are we accessible to the general public, and do people feel welcome when they come, and that kind of thing. So I think this will be a good opportunity to refresh how we do things. So that's my major report. And anybody have any questions or want to know about something maybe that I haven't covered? Okay.
The cohabitation project sounds really interesting, and that's news, so that's cool. How many counties do you expect are housing those records?
What would you say, Drew? About maybe half of the counties have some cohabitation records?
Yeah, Adrian, when we were first assessing this with Dr. Waters a little while back, we broke it down as to who was a county in 1865, and who therefore who would have cohabitation records, and then from those counties, what did the state archives have? And so we found like that, I think it was 10 counties that the state archives did not have cohabitation records for in-house. So, and Sarah, remind me, did we have microfilm of those or an index of those?
I think some we do.
Okay.
I think pretty much most of them we do. There was only one county that we found a cohabitation volume in my tenure here that was unknown to us, but some of them remain in the counties. There's such a short window of time period. It's really from like the end of the Civil War until 1868 when the standardized marriage license law passes. So it's a very short window for these records. And from looking at the statute that created them, there was not a lot of detail about how to do them. So they show up in different places. Like we've talked about this with Drew, in Buncombe County, they're at the back of a road records volume. Like literally the county is like, okay, look, here's some blank pages. We'll use the back of this. Sometimes they're in a court volume. Sometimes they're in their own standalone volume. Sometimes they're loose paper. So they kind of vary by what the county did. But
so yeah. Adrian, at this point, we just need to go collect them. We've got 3 that were just passed over to archives, and there are registrars who have found them, and there are registrars who are like, I don't know if we still have those. So there might be a little bit of hand holding that Becky and I need to do to A, see if they still have them, B, where are they if they don't have them. So there's a little bit of that still needs to happen, but I'm really excited. Becky seems like she's moving forward on the project, and the scanning is getting started soon. Is that right, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's some exciting stuff happening there that we're going to be really excited to see move forward and be this incredible resource for African American genealogists specifically.
Yeah, they're really cool because, if you happen to have a relative that is in the records, it'll say, Sarah married Russell in 1845 in Wake County. So it's good detail. It's, both parents, both the partners and the date and where. And so it's great stuff. For those of you that don't know, marriage records are just kind of spotty anyway in North Carolina before 1868. So it's great stuff.
And specifically for me, Adrian, and I've been researching African American genealogy. I don't know what last name they took post emancipation. It's the first record I have found that shows the last name Sarah would have taken post emancipation, but it only shows up if she was married or cohabitating.
Yeah,
this is so exciting. Thank you, Drew, for your leadership on this. Going way back to the digitization of bills of sale, the kind of work that I'm able to do with students right now and in my own research to have this stuff amalgamated, right? It's all in one spot, and to be able to cross-reference makes everything it opens up these doors and to pathways of research that folks like John Ensko could never have done. It's just not possible to get all of this information in one spot and analyze it the way that we can now. And, just looking at what we've been able to do here in the last couple of months at Special Collections with a research fellow on the patent collection and the bills of sale, to go through all of the legal papers for the patents. We haven't made it to correspondence yet, but to pull out the names of folks and then use these cohabitation records and bills of sale as cross-reference alongside the census. And the student has been able to build out family groups to say, oh, okay, this is Sam Cope Jr., so this person must be Sam Cope Sr., so this must be his wife. And then suddenly you've been able to create a pathway for someone who is, still living in Buncombe County to connect themselves back to their great grandparents and beyond. And so that's just, it's so exciting. I love the realm of digital history and research and thinking about ways that, here in Buncombe County, we're going to be able to see these records from like the Low Country Digital Heritage Library, for instance, and see those connections between Asheville and Charleston and really peel the layers off of all of this. So thank you so much. This is a really, really exciting project. And I know that it has kickstarted not only my research, but the research of multiple local students in, I'm biased, but probably one of the best undergraduate history departments in the state. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think the other neat thing is it helps us learn. Each one of those projects is a learning process, and then you can see what else feeds into it, and it becomes a nice, like you say, we just have so much more data accessible that you can build out things. So it is exciting. It's very exciting. I totally agree. So yeah, that's cool stuff.
Thank you, Drew. And Sarah, thank you. And I'm going to pop off now,
Okay.
But it's good to see everybody, and I'll see you next time.
Dr. Waters. Okay, Adrian, do you want to take the first part of the next section of the agenda, just updates on the current grant and scholarships and the workshop?
Yeah, so we have done what we think is our final TAP visit for the Traveling Archivist program, and we completed that last week at Durham Tech Community College. It went well. We have a partner archivist who volunteered to be with us on the TAP program, Megan Lyon from Duke University, and she's got a lot of experience with arrangement and description, which was a big help to have her along. So that went well. One thing, and I'm glad Karen's here, because we've kind of had one of our community archive groups sort of go dormant, and that is the North Carolina Black Repertory Theater. So Karen, I don't know if you, but we've sort of, Nancy Bruce, who's their volunteer archivist, has kind of dropped contact, and I think she had some illness. So I don't know.
I think there's some internal stuff going on. She had
Maybe
told
a conversation with the board about record storage too. We weren't sure.
they're not sure where they're going to keep them. They're not sure if they want to donate them to us. They kind of wanted us to temporarily store them, which we really can't do. And I explained that to her. So I haven't heard from her since that conversation either. So I'll reach back out to her and see.
Yes, and lots of factors, but when and if they are ready to resume, we can. And certainly this grant goes through 2023, so there's time. But we've done 5 of the site visits, and that's where we are right now. But in pretty good shape with the requirements, the promises that we've made for completing items with the grant for that. And so now it'll be reporting through the end of the year, getting those reports out to the places we visited, and then starting to advertise in January for a new round of traveling archivist organization recipients. So we'll rely on your help to get the word out about that when we're ready for that. And then, so other parts of the current grant, we had intended to set up 3 borrowing stations for oral history recording equipment. That order is underway, but there has been a little bit more of a delay, so we don't have those ready yet. We had hoped to have one ready for our workshop in Asheville, but we didn't quite make that deadline, so we'll get that out as soon as we can. And then the online primary source directories, the contract finished with my intern over the summer, and she got a good start. I think we still have a little bit more to do to get those ready for the website. And of course, the America 250 website has more development to be ready for them. So there's going to be kind of work on a couple of different ends to get that live as a resource for partners to use statewide and beyond. But we've got a good start on that. So that's underway. And we had our first Asheville workshop, as you all know. Yay, it went really well. Thanks to Catherine for hosting, and Trey and Drew were there. So I'm hoping that the other participants know how special they are to have so many great representatives on this board in Asheville. And I think overall it went well. We had great attendance. We had to shut down registration early. And we did have some last minute cancellations, but I think we were still around 35 people, which is really good. And so we have our next one coming up at Karen's site in October on the 24th, and registration's going well for that. So far, we've got 28 people registered. So I also wanted to check with Karen about the capacity for your space. I know it's the space we had our last meeting in June 1st.
We're applying with space. That's the auditorium. It'll hold 250 people. So we're
Okay.
Space.
Okay. So yeah, I'll touch base with you soon about a couple other logistics for that, like parking and coffee and things.
I can make a parking now.
Okay, cool. All right, great. So that's underway, and I think we know some of the tweaks that we need to do time wise and otherwise to iron out a few of the wrinkles. But I think overall it went pretty well, and I thought I'd share with you, if I'll get this pulled up on my screen. So one of the last breakout sessions was kind of using those online material from those online directories and putting together little categories like immigration, protest, freedom, and then breaking people out into groups to build a little panel, like a mock exhibit panel with some art supplies and some of those materials that the online directories have pulled together from various repositories in the state. So that's one of them. I have a couple more if I can. There's another one. I'll just show you 3. But anyway, those are some of examples of what they created, which I thought turned out pretty well. I think we'll give them a little more time in Winston-Salem on that, but they had about half an hour and they pulled together the stuff, and most of the groups did a great job. So that was fun.
Adrian, Adrian, I'll just say it was nice having state archives be in Asheville, and like sometimes the West feels left out or feels disassociated from Raleigh or the state of North Carolina. I don't know. I appreciate y'all coming to Asheville and being available to our residents, and I was excited to see Trey being able to bring some folks down from MCI, and I felt like there was a good smorgasbord of people who attended who were able to get some tools and resources in our community that might not have been here before. So thank you for coming west.
Yeah, it's fun. We usually have a good turnout in Asheville, though that was a blockbuster for workshops that I've managed, but it's usually a pretty receptive community to workshops. So it's great. It was great to be there and see you all in person too.
Well, and I'll add too, I thought it was really nice that a solid handful of folks were not history and archives professionals. This is not something that they do on a regular basis. A handful of nonprofits folks who were interested in storytelling and oral history were able to come, and they got a lot out of it, is what I've heard. And we've received several emails over the past few days about folks looking to check out our oral history backpack. So I look forward to the state having some out here too, because I'm not sure that 8 is going to be enough once we really start promoting these. But yeah, it was such a nice mix of folks, and not all of them were archives and history folks. So they got them in the door, and we've connected with some new people. And yeah, so thanks for doing it. It was fun.
Good to hear that positive feedback. I'm glad it was well received and well attended. And I had a good conversation with the local radio lady up there about it. And then she's like, oh, I need to know more about the archives. Can I come talk to you about, because she had done some research and a topic that she was interested in coming here. And so I said, absolutely. So good connection.
I'm so glad that you got to do that interview, Sarah. And like, that was one of those days where it just completely left my brain. It was
you're not used to Sunday afternoon being Sunday afternoon is not a time where you're thinking about work. So right. I had to remember too. I was like, be ready.
But also just to definitely want to give props to our county communications staff for really over the past several years, they've really stepped up and done a lot of reaching out into the departments and finding out what we're doing and being good about sharing that and taking requests for press releases and things. So Karen, I don't know if you're a part of like the county government system, but maybe a note to your PIO. It seems to have done the trick for us here.
I'll keep that in mind.
And I'd say too, just a nice thing about the TAP, I'll just use the Museum of the Cherokee Indian as an example. So doing a TAP visit out there, that's a nice connection in. So if they say, oh, I've got this artifact, who at the Museum of History can I connect with? Who do I need to talk to about that? That's the other nice benefit of the TAP program, is then you can, even if it's not us or not any one of you that can help, we know we're connected to other resources. And that's been positive to take our TAP recipients and give them other additional resources beyond what is available in the department or in other places in the department. So that's been good too. Cool. All right. Anything else, Adrian, for the current grant?
Unless I'm missing something and you and Brooke can jump in and remind me, but I think.
Do you want to say anything about the spring sessions for the workshops?
Yeah, so we are going to be scheduling 3 sessions in 2023, probably trying to get most of those done in the spring, but we do have that wiggle room to go through the year for that. We've tentatively been talking to, we have a site in Pembroke, that's the Indian Education Program. They have a large auditorium there, and they're willing to let us have one of the workshops there. So that's a good possibility that we're going to try to nail down some dates soon. And then I've been working with Lynn on our board in Edenton, and she suggested a cooperative extension kind of co-op program space. So I have a call in to someone there, but haven't heard back yet. So that's a possibility. And if that doesn't work out, we'll probably still look at Edenton either way so that she can help host. And of course, we have a historic site there, and the courthouse would be nice. It's got a couple accessibility challenges, but it does have a space. So I think either one of those spaces will work out. And then We also have challenges here in Raleigh with our space, but I think the third one will be here in Raleigh and for 2023. And our normal classroom for workshops is got a lot of surplus furniture in it now. So we'll have to time it to where that's cleared out, but otherwise we'll look at other spaces.
Okay. Any questions for Adrian on current grant stuff or plans? Okay. The only other short thing on this part of the agenda was update about America 250th, kind of national and statewide planning. I thought I would just speak to, Darren mentioned we had some non-recurring money, which means we only have it for a year, that was put in the budget for America 250th. So what we're targeting for that are some production of things that will be useful throughout the commemoration. So for example, we're going to support some archaeology work that will feed into major archaeology events that we want to do during the 250th. So this time it will be Brunswick Town doing a real serious look there at the landscape of the archaeology and needs. Developing some teacher resources for lesson plans and teacher training. This beginning of a wayside program about America 250th to support some waysides. Development of a couple of traveling exhibits. Those would be non-artifact related, but they could go to libraries and other places. And then trying to develop a kids activity kit for public libraries with a couple of books and games and something like that that could be checked out on the Revolutionary War. So trying, like I said, very specifically to make things that we can continue to use throughout the commemoration, and hopefully we'll get some additional resources. I really would like to get a grant program for locals, that want to plan activities or events, but I'll put that into a budget request. So hopefully that'll be seen positively, because I think a lot of folks that are starting to think about commemorative activities, could use some support. So that's going to be the big goal, is to try to see if I can get some traction on that. I think that's about it. Any specific questions on America 250 stuff? Okay. Our big thing that we wanted to kind of talk about today is the next item, which is strategies for the next grant. So most grants from the National Historical Publications and Records Commission run about 2 years. And the way this cycle works is if we want one to begin in 2024, we'll need to write it coming up soon. Like we would need to have a draft in the spring for them to review and then have a final submission in the early summer. So even though, we still have a whole other year left on the current grant, it's not too soon to be thinking about what we may want to target next for programming. Adrian and I had looked back at our strategic planning discussions, and some, one idea that had been surfaced was, I think it came from you, Karen, was the idea of maybe a train the trainer for community collecting, but aimed at training public libraries, public librarians. So that was an idea that's a possibility. I don't know if there's other ideas that folks have for a need, or if we want to flesh that out, or if anyone has thought of anything else in the short term or other ways that we can support. I mean, generally board grants need to be working on the preservation of and/or access to records in the state. So that's kind of like the main thrust.
I'll just say I love that idea from Karen. I think that's a really wonderful thing to do. I think, especially following up on several workshops over the next couple of years about community collecting. The hope is that it inspires people to do that. And then something that I'm seeing here in Buncombe County is that, yeah, there really is a need to be able to delegate, and for the public library to be able to train other people to train other people. And so the meta programming of that is really, really nice, because that's kind of what I'm coming up on now, is that folks have really gotten excited, and we've done a good job at reaching out. But now it's like, oh, okay, I can't deal with the Asheville Fire Department and Asheville Greenworks and the YMI all at once. What I need to be able to do is to teach the folks at the YMI the historian at the fire department. Like how do we do this stuff? So I'm really interested in that idea.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with interdepartment. We have someone from the not the fire department, the sheriff's office that they wanted them to create their own archive, and so I invited her over to tour our archive and see what we do, and she was like, "Oh, I can't do this in my office." No, it's not something that's probably, you're gonna have some shelves in your office. And she had a good insights on it. She's like, well, what happens when I leave? And, how can people access this? And so we're in talks with that. We're going to do like a community scanning day for them, so that, because they have a lot of retirees that have a lot of memorabilia that they want to either donate or at least scan it. So we're kind of planning that out now, and how to get the things to the library, because that's where people can access it. So
Right.
that was kind of where that all came from. And I've gone out to a few of the churches and helped them with their archives and kind of their storage, how they can store it, and looking at stuff. And mostly it's a lot of light issues. It's a lot of like, don't put this in the basement, just kind of stuff like that.
Historic
And so that's
buildings
where that
is my
came
issue
from.
here.
Yeah.
And then just there's no space for things. And but yeah, creating awareness around this type of organizational archiving, so these especially larger community organizations, and Buncombe County is flush with nonprofits, many of whom are really just now starting to say, oh yeah, we should keep up with ourselves, and coming to us with like full house back here. But in having these conversations with the fire department, for instance, they're building a brand new facility sort of right outside of downtown, which had the ability to have a larger footprint. And it's like, if we had started this conversation 2 or 3 years ago, we could have ensured that there would be space in Station 13 for the archives, and that, have conversations about how we can work together as the library to make that stuff available. It's like kind of what we're doing with the YMI right now, is that we're cataloging and making their records available on our database, but they're listed as a separate repository because they are. So they're over there. So they're just kind of come on as an official partnership, but thinking about ways that we could get folks and organizations thinking about ways of collaborating and keeping these records would be great.
Yeah, and I think, Catherine, the program that you're launching now with the backpacks could be a useful part of that instruction too. And so then I want us to think about maybe a wish list for ways to spend the federal money for this grant. I mean, there's also, because we're focusing on libraries, there's also a big pot of LSTA money, whatever that stands for, library T, I don't know.
Library services and technical something. So all
Okay.
states through the Institute of Museum and Library Services gets block grants to their libraries. And then that's pot of money is called LSTA, and libraries can apply for use of that money. And I think this might be an opportunity for us to think about, is there something we could offer to, if we're out training, the trainers in local libraries, is there anything that's eligible for LSTA support for, like Catherine, like your backpack expansion or something like that? So that's definitely a possibility. But Adrian's right. We need to kind of think about, if this is the way we want to go, like what would we be wanting to do, and what would we need funding for, and that kind of thing. I just kind of jotted down, listening to y'all talk, possible topics for training might include raising awareness, thinking about continuity for collections. If you plan a collection, who's going to take care of it? Physical needs, sort of the general best practices, maybe some specifics about community scan days or oral histories as popular programs for small groups to start, access basics, and then maybe collaboration opportunities with your library. I mean, I think that, am I correct that it might be different in different counties, how that looks, but Karen has good storage space, where Catherine's talking about shared cataloging. There might be different models for collaboration. Does that kind of hit sort of some of our maybe topics?
Yeah, and I wonder too if this isn't a good opportunity to do some born digital cataloging basics.
Okay.
And I think that those could be just general community trainings anyway. Something I've really wanted to do here is how to back up your Facebook and Instagram and stuff. How to, make sure that all the photographs on your phone are archived. They're not just going to disappear one of these days. To dig into the properties tab and add descriptions and things to photos. I think that that's something that folks would be really, really interested in. And even, thinking about this last time, the general public, just knowing how to archive yourself, that we're creating all these records all day, every day. We probably never created more records as a human species. And, but they're being lost at a higher rate almost as well. So thinking about how we can just get the public thinking about what is archives and records and how did and do we need them?
Right. So kind of building capacity for our libraries to do that on a local level. Okay. Does this feel like, I mean, I know we don't have the whole group here, but just sort of taking a temperature of our informal room, does that feel like someplace we want to maybe start building that out? Okay. I think the other thing that I could do here, and Adrienne and I can look at, is I see this as an opportunity to possibly also look for some partnerships, like not just with the LSTA money, but maybe with the state library system, and maybe with the two commissions that our agency operates, the African American Heritage Commission and the new American Indian Heritage Commission that's just going to meet for the first time in a week. So that, I think, will be a good opportunity to reach those two commissions and say, hey, we're going to do this. What other things are out there that might be of importance to include in this kind of capacity building? Or maybe they want to partner with like locations and something like that. So, okay, sounds good. Well, we'll get a start at that and maybe then ask for some input about what this looks like and elements of what needs to be included. Something out here.
Sarah, do we know who's on those commissions?
I have not seen the list of the appointments because they're brand new to the American Indian Commission. And I don't think they've got their meeting notice public yet. You only have to have like a week's notice to do that on the Secretary of State's office. So I'll try to see if I can find out a list of, because the other thing is I know from our department standpoint, if you have one from each state and federal recognized tribe, then that's important for us for our own individual work with culturally with each of those communities. So I haven't seen the list yet, but I'll let me make myself a note to ask. It's our
Thank you.
Yeah. Our Deputy Secretary, Tracy Burns, is in charge of that commission. Okay, cool. Thank you. We will definitely be in touch to help with like the meat of a draft proposal, just to make sure it's something that works for everybody. Okay, cool. Well, just a couple quick updates that I had put on the agenda. I had asked Deputy Secretary Burns for some input on one vacancy that we have on the board. So she's supposed to be getting back to me. Specifically, I was looking for someone more towards the eastern part of the state because we have a lot of western and sort of central western folks. So hopefully we'll have some word on that. But if you have a term that's expiring, we'll be in touch with you to see if you want to continue. There's kind of like groups of 2 to 3 people rotate at different times. So, but if you have ideas, always don't wait for there to be a vacancy. Feed me an idea if you have someone you think would be good for the board, please. It's always good to have that in our pocket. And I just wanted to highlight too, the Community College Archives Association is having their first like in-person big conference coming up. So I'm pretty excited about that. And Erin Larimore, who's on the board but not here today, she and I and Brooke are all on the agenda. That's going to be a really good, I think, training for that community. They're really getting going in terms of their archives. We've visited a number of them through TAP visits, and they're really kind of organizing themselves nicely. And they've got, preservation issues and other resources, digitization. They're bringing in lots of different folks to talk to them. They're talking about advocacy and awareness. So that's really nice to see that community really building a lot of capacity to support their archives within their institutions. And the last thing, just kind of by way of an advocacy sort of update, I wanted to let you know, so the Archivist of the United States that we had, David Ferriero, retired, and the Biden administration did nominate someone to replace him, and that is Dr. Colleen Shogan. She currently is the head of the White House Historical Association. She has a PhD from Yale in political science, I believe. She's an adjunct professor at Georgetown. Yeah, I had to think about it. She was vice chairman of the National Centennial Women's Suffrage Commission. She used to work for the Senate, a couple Senate committees. She worked for the Library of Congress for a number of years. So she's been around, related fields, and I think is a strong candidate. Couple of members of the Council of State Archivists had the opportunity to talk with her, and they really liked her. And so the council came out in support of her nomination. She did have a hearing in the subcommittee in the Senate a couple weeks ago, and that did get a little sideways by a couple members of the Senate who decided they wanted to make it very political, even though she joined the White House Association under the Trump administration. So she's pretty non-politically charged, I would say. But so that is, it had a party line vote, so it'll have to be discharged. Her nomination will have to be discharged from the subcommittee to the floor, but we're still hopeful that that she will receive a full Senate support. We've had some overtures to a couple of Republican members of the Senate that would seem very positively inclined to support her. So hopefully she'll be confirmed. We've had the opportunity to talk with her about some of the lagging issues at the National Archives, like make sure there's good support for NHPRC. And there's a lot of complaints about veterans requests being 2 years backed up and their search room's not open. And I had raised the issue to be elevated to her about, and when I was at the Museum of the Cherokee Indian, there's a lot of complaints about access to tribal records that are in federal record centers. And that's just, if they're not open, nobody can go there. And it's so trying to resolve some of those issues. And I just mentioned on behalf of North Carolina that that's been a complaint that I have heard, that people want access to their records in the federal record centers. So hopefully I feel like she's going to be positively inclined to deal with those topics. So more to come, but that'll be good. She'd be the first female archivist of the United States too. So that's exciting.
And I'll say that the backup at NARA is so real that I put in a request over 2.5 years ago. I got an email a couple weeks ago and I was like, oh yeah, that thing. I just completely gave up on the fact that it was ever going to come to me. So yeah, if you hear from folks, it's coming. It will come. When? But they're working on it.
That's been a hot topic. And for those of us on the call who do a lot of public services, like not an acceptable backlog. Like I have staff answer all patrons within 24 hours, even if we're not gonna be able to fulfill it immediately. Like you must answer someone because that's good customer service. So yeah, that's a real topic for them. I think they've taken a lot of heat. So she knows she's got, I think, her work cut out for her in that regard. But
Sarah, if you want to pass that work ethic on and that customer service idea onto state vital records, we'd appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I can only have impact on my division, but we do regularly get that. People will say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you answered so fast. And I was like, well, at least I'm telling you that I've got it and we're doing something, might take us a little bit of time to research it, but we're going to work it. Yeah. I'm optimistic that they will turn their customer service backlog around, but hopefully. That's always my rule at registers meetings, never follow the vital records folks because it's always contentious. Anyway, so yeah, that's about the big news from like the national level with archives and records. So that'll be good. Anything from you all that you want to discuss or something you've heard of we could share or talk about? Nothing on the horizon? Okay. Well, we'll try to get maybe some draft minutes out to folks so they can see what the folks that weren't here, and we'll be in touch about the next grant draft. I'm not sure what to say about the next meeting schedule. Typically, the rules for public meetings are if you vote on a meeting schedule in an open meeting, then that's your regularly scheduled. I think we're going to have one that's a specially called meeting. And then we can vote on a schedule, but just taking the pulse of those of you that are here, would a meeting like 3 meetings a year work? Like every 4 months or so? We
Yeah, that'd be
sort of
fine.
need to think.
I don't think we need, if there's not something to meet on, then we should meet. But yeah, having it regularly scheduled for every, 3 times a year seems reasonable.
Okay. And this time's still good for folks, like 11 o'clock? Is there a certain, I know it's hard to say with teaching schedules and other things, but is there a few days of the week that we should avoid or that you know of?
I'll just throw in that I think Tuesdays and Thursdays are always going to be better for me.
Okay.
We're just more fully staffed. And so like today, I'm lucky I've got a substitute here, but other times I'm having to like make sure the doorbell's not ringing and, if other staff need assistance. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm always really
Okay. Well, maybe what we'll try to do is have a early spring meeting to kind of finalize a grant draft, and then we can go from there and vote on a meeting schedule after that. Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Anybody have anything else? Lunch? Lunchtime?
Yeah, I'm hungry. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
My mind is elsewhere.
Your mind is at lunch. Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.